Okay, so that's us recording. So once again, thanks very much to everybody who's been able to join us this morning. We really appreciate you coming to this session. I've got some slides that I am going to share on the screen, so hopefully everybody can see those. Just looking for someone to nod and agree. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so first slide is just a bit of an introduction. So my name's Sati Kaur. I'm the Chief Officer for Corporate Solutions at Midlothian Council, and I'm just going to take you through a short presentation for our Meet the Buyers event. So, oh, there we go. And I'm going too fast. Excellent. So just a couple of points for everybody. So as I said, this meeting is being recorded. If you prefer not to be on video, please switch off your camera. Again, if we can just ask you to mute until the Q&A session, that would be appreciated. In terms of asking questions as we go through, so we do have what we call a chat function on Teams. So it should be just kind of up the top. It looks like a little speech bubble for anybody that's not used Teams before. So if there are questions as we go through, please feel free to pop them in the chat so that you don't forget them at the end. Or raise your hand if you want to ask a question at the end. And when we come to the end of the slides, we'll just go through those in order. I'm thinking that we'll probably be about 20 minutes max in terms of the presentation. It shouldn't take that long to go through. We will collate all of the questions that are asked from the session today, and we'll post them up online as well. So people can refer back to those later if they wish to. And the other thing just to say to everybody is we obviously have email addresses for you all as part of joining today's session. We would like to keep those email addresses for the purposes of making you aware of any kind of future sessions, and also to probably gather a bit of feedback at the end, because this is the first time that we've done this exercise in this way when we've been looking at transport providers. So it'll be helpful for us afterwards to get in touch with you to get some feedback. If you do not wish us to contact you at all, again, if you just drop into the chat function and just say, don't contact us, and we'll obviously take your name off that list of emails. If you're not sure how to do that, you can either tell us at the end, or you can just drop us an email. So they've obviously got the procurement one for signing up to the session. So you can just drop us an email in there and say, please don't contact us, and we won't do that. So that's pretty much our housekeeping. Okay. So our agenda. So for today, we're going to do a bit of an introduction in terms of who we are, a bit of kind of backgrounds and context, what our requirements are. So essentially the meaty bit in terms of what we're looking for as part of this procurement exercise from you, indicative timelines for the process that we're undertaking. There's also a bit of information on wider work, specifically to the work that we're doing around digital transformation in terms of licensing of taxis, and then the Q&A at the end. So as I said, probably about 20 minutes or so. Because we are recording the session, we will do a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording onto the website afterwards as well. So you can go back and have a look at it. You can also look through the slides, and as I said, that wider sharing for anybody that's not been able to join us today. So in terms of what we're doing, so a kind of slightly different approach to the transport contract for Midlothian from what you've seen before, if you've previously been involved or you are a current supplier for us at the moment. So we're covering all of client transport. So that's home to school, adult social care and children's services as well as part of this procurement exercise. And we've got a cross-directorate working group who are taking this forward. So that includes myself and representations from all the different services that are on the screen. So it's quite a significant piece of work for us. And there are a number of people who are listed on the screen who are on the call as well. So in terms of Q&A later, if there's any questions I can't answer, others will be able to come in hopefully and answer those. And anything that we can't answer here and now, we will take away and we will come back to you afterwards. So in terms of Midlothian, you probably will all know that we are the fastest growing local authority in Scotland. We continue to grow on a daily basis. So the figures there talk about the previous census information, and the current census information that came out last year tells us that we are kind of fastest growing in early years and also fastest growing in older years. So we have pressures like across the whole kind of system and all of our communities. We are looking at just short of 2,000 new houses that were built in 23-24. For those of you that live in Midlothian, it will probably feel like everywhere you turn there are new houses. So that gives you an idea of the scale of work and the scale of services that we need to provide, particularly around transport. We currently have 2 nursery schools, 31 primary schools and 6 secondary schools. And we also have Saltersgate Special School for our children and learners that have additional support needs. So again, that's specifically for the home to school transport element of it, that those are quite big contract areas that we're looking at. So in terms of the opportunity, so we are posting out for an initial 2-year contract for client transport. And as I said, that covers 3 areas: home to school transport, children's services, and adult health and social care services as well. So year 1 and 2 contract value in total, and that's across taxis, minibuses and coaches, is just short of £8 million a year. And then year 3 is just short of 4 million and year 4 is just short of 4 million. So that's how you get that total. So the initial contract will be for 2 years. And then what we're proposing is the opportunity to add one and add one. So that's why we've listed up to 4 years of a contract, but we'll be looking for a 2-year commitment as part of your submission. We've got different lots that we're going to talk about. So specifically today, we're here to talk about taxis and private hires. So in terms of the opportunity for yourselves, there is 139 additional support needs routes consisting of 288 passengers currently. Most of those require attendance, so that's quite important in terms of your submission. And we have 88 adult social care routes consisting of 95 passengers, some of which require attendance. For your information, just in case you are somebody who sits across both taxis and coaches and minibuses, the coach and minibus route information is up there as well. So 43 routes and 11 minibus routes, 43 coach routes and 11 minibus routes as well. But we're going to focus in on what we call lots 1 and 3, which are specifically for taxis. So in terms of how we used to do it or how we currently do it, because we have an existing contract, we have one framework which has 3 lots, and the way that we currently split that up is very much around home to school and then adult social care. So we have home to school taxi, home to school coach and minibus, and then adult social care. And at the moment, we've got an expiry date of June 2025, so the end of the academic year for that current framework. The way that we're now proposing to do it is much less, I suppose, about splitting around the communities that we're serving and much more about the split across the sort of the transport options that we're using. So we have lot 1, which is taxi and private hire cab services, lot 2, which is coach and minibus services, and then lot 3 is what we're calling our emergency and ad hoc services, and we'll talk about that as well. So the focus for you in terms of the opportunity today is lots 1 and lots 3. Our intended contract start date is the 6th of August 2025. So that's the start of just before the start of the new academic year for schools. And then the option for extension, as I said, so 2 years to begin with, and then there'll be the option for a further year and a further year with a maximum duration of 4 years. So lot 1. So this lot for you will cover home to school transport, additional support needs, children's services, and adult social care. So we're inviting obviously tenders from all of you for that. There are some kind of key points that we want to flag up in here. So in terms of the way that we will evaluate your tender, 70% of the evaluation will be based on price and 30% will be based on quality. We're taking what we call a mini competition approach. And then we are aware that because we are a growing council, the routes that we're telling you at the moment are the ones that we know and the ones that we currently need filled. But things will change over that 2-year period. Children move schools, new schools are built. There are other things that will happen in terms of communities, and there probably will be new routes that will become available during that time. And if and when that happens, we'll go through that mini competition process, and all suppliers who are in that lot will be notified and will have the opportunity to bid for those as well. It's the opportunity to bid, so if you don't want to, that's also absolutely fine. And if you do, then it's there for you. One of the key things for you to consider if you're submitting a tender for this bid is that we are likely to have passengers with additional support needs. So the requirements for them will be slightly different. So it's just remembering that. And then obviously there is confidentiality that sits around that for those children, learners, young people and adults that may be in there. Benefits for you, longer term contract. So obviously that kind of initial 2 years is there for you. So there's that commitment from us and that confirmation in terms of what you would be doing for that 2-year period, the stable work and the regular income. One of the things that we also wanted to highlight for you is the estimated collection and drop-off times, and those are estimated, but to give you a rough idea of what we would be looking for you to deliver, what kind of times that would be, so you can work that around other work that you've got. So for home to school transport, we'd be looking for collections in and around kind of just after 7 o'clock in the morning till about 9 o'clock in the morning, and that is just Monday to Friday. And then drop-offs will be somewhere between 2 and 4:30 in the afternoon and 12 till 2:30 on a Friday, because we have that earlier finish for schools. In terms of the adult services and ASN, you're looking at drop-off times of between 8 to 10:30 in the morning, Monday to Friday, and 2 till 5 in the afternoon, Monday to Friday. And again, just to note, those are all Monday to Friday opportunities that we have. Lot 2 is coaches and minibus services. So we're obviously going to share the slides. You'll be able to look at that in a bit more detail. But because today's session is focused in on taxis, we're not going to talk through that in any great detail today. And I'm going to skip over to lot 3. So lot 3 is different to what we're currently doing. So it's a bit newer. So it's what we're calling an emergency and ad hoc taxi and public and private hire cab services. So the reason that we would need this is it could be so where a route has been handed back, for example, so we have a supplier or provider who's no longer able to provide that service at very short notice for whatever reason. So we've now got that and we need to provide a service for our communities on that, or anything sort of additional but urgent. So something that has happened that requires like urgent transportation at very short notice. And that could be, we've said, for example, in children's services, because that's something that we do have. So that's our kind of third option of a lot which you can bid in for. So the weighting and the quality, the weighting on this is slightly different. So it's an 80% on price and 20% on quality. The reason for that is that we're conscious, because it is a bit more last minute ad hoc, that your pricing may be slightly different in terms of your costs for that. So that's why we've reflected that through the weighting process. In terms of our procurement approach, it's slightly different. So you would submit your tender for that, and we will do what we call a ranked outcome approach. So we will have a list of providers in that lot, and then they are ranked, and we will go through them in rank order. So from first all the way right through when we require that provision of service, and we will get in touch with the first person, then the next person, and the next person. Obviously, if you bid into that, we can give you more information in terms of how that works if you are awarded the contract. So the things to consider in here, if you wish to submit a tender, are it is very much more likely to be reactive. So it's less PANS, it's much more reactive. We wouldn't even be able to tell you the routes just now. It would be at the time of getting in touch with you. So very little notice of upcoming work. So you need to think that through in your submission in terms of how you would demonstrate that you would be able to provide that service if we required it. And again, would likely involve passengers with additional support needs or specific considerations that need to be thought about through that transport provision. The benefits here are no long-term commitment. So for some that is a benefit. If you're looking for that kind of longer term commitment, then obviously lot one that we just talked about is probably the better lot for you to go for. The work will typically last less than 4 weeks. And again, if you think about in lot one, we talked about if new routes come on during the course of the contract, we would obviously do that mini competition approach. So in this example here, there could be a scenario where a route is given back to us because a provider is no longer able to provide it. So we would be looking to go into lot three providers to provide that short term, and then obviously go through a mini competition with lot one providers to give that longer term contract there. So we're saying probably in and around kind of 4 weeks-ish. And we would obviously communicate that with you if you are the preferred supplier to deliver that short-term work. It could be supplementary work during quiet periods for you as well. So that may be a benefit, and you might want to then consider bidding into lot three. And also no need to repeatedly bid for routes. So as we said, we've got that ranked outcome approach. So you will submit your tender during this current tender period, and then we will go through that and we will pull together that list of providers in ranked order, so you don't have to continue to resubmit during that 2-year contract time. And again, if we were to do any extensions for a +1 and a +1, you wouldn't need to resubmit, because we would use the information that you provided to us as part of this process. In terms of estimated collection and drop-off time, so we're saying in the most part it would be the normal timeframes as read out in the previous slide, although we are caveating that with there might be opportunity for variance and earlier late runs, particularly in children's services, because as we said, it is that much more reactive service that we're looking for you to provide. Okay. Oh, sorry, I keep skipping slides. So apologies. So the next slide that we're going to talk about is just what we call our invitation to tender. So we call that ITT for short. So that's very much getting into the procurement process itself now. So the instructions to tender, so the ITT document itself will be uploaded onto what we call Public Contract Scotland, which is an online portal. PCS, that we call it for short. So PCS is the only way that we can accept your tender applications. It's really important that you know that. We cannot accept any submissions through email, through paper, through writing them down, through any other process other than through PCS. So we need everybody who wants to be involved in this process and who wishes to submit a tender for any one of those lots to be registered on PCS. There is a slide further on, and colleagues from Economic Development who are on the call are hosting a webinar around how to register, and the information on that follows on at the end of this. So it's really important that you remember that. So we will issue all of our paperwork through PCS, so that tender document will be really clear in terms of what we are looking for from you. All of the information that you need to submit your tender will be in there. It's important that you read through all of that, and it's also important that you adhere to the deadlines, and we'll talk about timescales in a minute. We cannot accept late applications as well, and we can't accept applications with things missing. So again, we'll just remind you of that to make sure that everything is clear. We'll also have our terms and conditions in there, our specification for what we're looking for, and that is your place to upload all of your submissions and your full response to that ask. So part of the reason for putting this up is to show you what we need, but also to show you in a way that's hopefully not overwhelming. And I say that as I put big list up on the screen. So I've got 2 slides which are side by side, which will show you that we are looking for what we call 27 schedules that are included as part of our ITT. The purpose of showing you those 2 slides is to explain to you that not everything will be relevant for you, because we don't want you to go online and be overwhelmed and that puts you off applying. So for example, if you are going to submit a tender for the kind of longer term reliable contract work for taxis, that would be lot 1 that you're submitting. In lot 2 you won't be, because it's coaches and minibuses, and you may not want to submit for the emergency. So if you're just submitting lot 1, then for example, schedule 22 will obviously be relevant to you, but 23 and 24 will not be relevant. And similarly, 16 wouldn't be relevant and 15 wouldn't be relevant, and some of the others on the previous page. So it is a lot of information. It's important that you read through it all, but also to remember not all of it will be relevant for you, depending on which lot you are submitting for, and that will be clearly marked so you can skip past those pieces that you don't need to be looking at. We're going to talk a bit about what we are looking for from you. So one of the things that's key that's in the schedule is we need you to complete the Serious Organised Crime check. I'm going to call that SOC for short because it's easier to say. So this is a mandatory check that we require everybody to complete, and that information is shared with our colleagues in Police Scotland. So we need everybody who is a director or a person who has powers of representation, decision or control within the company to provide information for the Serious Organised Crime check. That is, that's part of the schedule that's there on the procurement portal, and we need all of that completed as part of your submission. And then the other bit that's key is what we call our quality questions. So we talked about earlier about that kind of weighting. So for lot one, it's 70-30, so 70 on price and 30 on technical. And the technical piece are these quality questions. And then similarly for lot three, it was 80 on price and 20 on technical. And again, it's those quality questions that we're looking for you to complete. So some of you are probably current suppliers with us, or have been through this process before when this exercise was done previously. So you may recall that at that point, the tender that you would have submitted, you would have been responding to what we call like open text questions. So you'd have been asked a question, you would have had a maximum of say 500 words or something to put down your answer, and you would have had that kind of like free form text box for you to reply. We've changed it this year to make it a simpler process for you as the applicants, and also a more transparent process for us in terms of scoring that through. So what we've done is multiple choice questions that we now have. And so we have multiple choice questions that are in there, and you've got three options, so A, B, and C in terms of your responses, and they range over a different themes that we're looking for you to respond to. And then in terms of how we score, we've got in the corner a kind of points-based system. So a good answer is 2 points, a standard is 1 point, and a substandard is 0. So we ask you to make sure that your answers are a true reflection of how you operate. That's really important because that's what we score on. So then that's what we expect if you do become one of our suppliers. And it's also really important that you answer all of those questions as part of your check and balance before you submit your information. And please make sure that you've answered all of those questions, because if you've missed one out, then we can't score your application. Other questions that we have that we don't score on, but we do look at and consider as part of your tender are what we call pass-fail questions. So we do require you to review the code of conduct that's in the schedule, and then to read that and sign that as part of your return submission. And we do require you to understand the responsibilities and to confirm about PVGs being in place. If they're not in place at the point of submission, that you understand that they need to be by the point of starting the contract. And then we also have what we call for information questions. And there's a list there of what we're looking for. So for example, are you a living wage employer? Do you adhere to Fair Work First policies? What's your kind of principles around climate change, etc., etc. So we don't score those are just for information. So they're for information as part of the process. It is important that you answer all of those questions, even the ones that are for information. Anything that is not answered, we will not be able to take as a submission, and we will not score that as part of the process. So completing your tender submission. So as I said, we really need you to register on Public Contract Scotland. If you don't, you will not see the information to submit your tender. and we will not be able to accept it if it doesn't come through Public Contracts Scotland. Some of you may be registered already. If you are registered already, it might be worth just double checking that you know your password, you can get into your account, etc., and that you have alerts switched on, you remember how to use it, so that you can find the information that you need. If you're not registered on Public Contract Scotland, then we would encourage you to do so now while you've got the time before the ITT is live, so you can give yourself as much time as possible. You can also email our economic development colleagues, and the email address is there, and they will give you support in terms of registering and setting up notifications. And again, we've got a slide just talking about the webinar next week if you want to join that, and there's direct information and support at that webinar. Really important that you complete the tender submission and answer all of the questions that are in there, and ensure that if there's any additional documentation that you need to provide as evidence for your responses, that you add that and upload that through PCS. Also, remember to leave plenty of time before the deadline. So again, you should probably register with PCS as early as possible. And please note, we've got what we call a question and answer portal through PCS. So if you need any clarification on any elements of that ITT, of this procurement exercise, you can submit your questions through the question and answer portal, and then we will respond through there. I would also ask, please do not submit your questions directly to any colleagues at Midlothian Council, because we cannot guarantee that we will look at those and we will answer those in time. So it's really important that all of your questions go through PCS. That will be monitored, and we will make sure that we respond to them within the time frame, and that helps to inform your tender. And also, just to flag up for anyone that's not aware, there is obviously free access to IT equipment at all of our libraries across Midlothian. So there's a list of all of them there. And if you want to take your own device to any of those libraries, you can drop in and do that, and you can use our Wi-Fi for free. So there's support in there in the libraries. If you want to book a computer to use one of our libraries, they can help you in terms of navigating through the internet to find the PCS site. We cannot obviously provide help to complete your tender, but we can give you help in and around that as much as we possibly can. So any one of those libraries are free for you to use. In terms of timeline, so as I said, you can register in PCS at any point, so I would urge you all to do that as soon as possible. We are intending to issue all of the documentation on the 6th of February, so that's next week for everybody. We wanted to get that out to people before the February holiday break, because we're conscious that that's coming up. We are expecting everybody to return all of their submissions and tender information by the 11th of March at 12 noon. Please note that this time is not able to be changed. It's really important that we will close at 12 noon and we cannot take any submissions after that for whatever reason. Everything has to be in by 12 noon. So again, the sooner that you can work on that, the better, just in case there are any issues. If you missed the deadline, we cannot accept it. So I'm hoping that message has come across quite strongly. It needs to be in by 12 noon. We are taking from the 12th of March to the 23rd of April to evaluate all of the tender applications that come through. That's obviously accounting for Easter holidays for us as well. So it's a bit of an extended timeline, but we are conscious there's Easter in there. During that time, we will also be passing all of the information for the serious and organised crime checks across to Police Scotland. So that will happen in tandem with the evaluation process, because Police Scotland needs to take that information, process it, check it, and then return that to us. So that will happen in and around the same time, because that will inform who we are able to award to and who we are not able to award to. The week beginning the 25th of April, we will look to propose our preferred suppliers through our own internal governance procedures and project board for formal approval. And then after that, we will issue our standstill notice. That will last until the 12th of May, so nothing happens during that time. And then from the 13th of May is our date where we will be issuing our award letters to those of you that are our preferred suppliers from that procurement exercise. At that point, if you do not already have drivers, our staff who are PVG checked, then we will also be encouraging you and asking you to make sure that you do that and supply that information to us. That needs to be with us before contract commencement. 20th of May is when we'll be looking for you to return all of the acceptance information to us, and then we can start doing that final assessment of routes and then allocating them out to you. And the 13th of August is the first day of the new academic term. We will obviously have confirmed routes prior to that. And on one of the earlier slides, I talked about the contract commencement being in and around the kind of 6th of August, so earlier than the first start date. We've also got a note on there about child protection awareness training. So we are looking for people to have completed a level of child protection awareness training prior to delivering our routes. We are currently looking at what child protection awareness training we can also offer you. So we don't have a confirmed date on that and more detail at the moment, but we're just working that through. So we'll be in touch with people who are our preferred suppliers about making sure that we've got that up-to-date training and how that training will be shaped for anybody that needs to access it through us. So that's our timeline process. So starting next week, and then that's the lead in to the 13th of August for everybody. So how to improve your chances. I've talked quite a bit about probably a lot of these things, but again, just to go back through that, it's really important that you read and understand all of the documentation and that you allow plenty of time to submit before the deadline. It's also really important that you're realistic about what you can and can't provide. We will score based on what you've told us. So if you've told us you can provide 100 routes, then we're going to be expecting you to provide 100 routes. So do be realistic about what you can and can't do, so that we can score appropriately. If there's anything that you're not sure about, as I said, we've got the question and answer portal. It's really important that you use the portal and don't contact people directly, because we cannot confirm that we'll be able to get that information to you in time. So please use the portal. That's the formal means of doing that. Presentation. So again, just remember to double check your homework essentially before it comes into us. Just check that it's correct. Have a final read through. Maybe have someone else look at it before it comes in. If we're asking you to provide any supplementary information, please make sure that it's relevant, and make sure that you're responding to the right questions with the right answers. And if there is and then obviously if there's anything afterwards in terms of feedback, obviously use all of that for any future submissions that you want to put in. So frequently made mistakes, people who don't submit a pricing schedule. So as I said, lot 1 is 70% price and 30% technical. So it's really important that you provide the information for the 70%. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to score you and take your tender forward. So always remember to put your pricing schedule in. We need to know how much you're proposing to charge us for those services. Not following the instructions. So again, reading through everything really carefully, double checking it, making sure that you understand it. Missing the deadline. We cannot take late applications, so that 12 noon deadline is there. It's an absolute hard line. We can't take anything later than that. Don't give too much detail, but don't give not enough detail either. So again, maybe somebody wants to read through your application just to kind of do that sense check for you. Unbelievable pricing. So if you put pricing in that we think is really, really high or really, really low, then we would deem that to be unbelievable. If that's the case and you can provide it for those, or you have to charge those higher prices, please explain your pricing. So break that down and explain it in your pricing schedule, so that it feels more believable as opposed to unbelievable. You must accept our terms and conditions of contract, and those are included in the schedule. Make sure that you answer the questions, respond to the questions as the questions so that nothing's out of order. Make sure everything's tidy when it's submitted so that we can read it easily. It helps us to score it better. And remember to attach any information that we ask you to attach. We can't score and assess applications if there is documentation that's missing. We won't be able to do that, so we won't be able to accept that. So just to kind of sum up, so again, in terms of the benefits, so why should you do this for us? So if you're looking at lot one, then we're talking about regular and reliable income. Obviously, for lot three, we talked about supplementing income, if that's the lot that you want to go for. In terms of lot one, it's obviously that job security. So as I said, an initial 2-year contract, and then the potential for a +1 and a +1. You get to bid for the routes that you want to work. You get to build up knowledge and expertise for future work and bids. The need for transport will not stop in Midlothian, as you know, if you're currently delivering for us at the moment. And the most important thing for me is you get the opportunity to provide a service for our communities that's really valuable and really needed. And it's really important that we are able to provide that, and we can only provide that if you bid in and you provide that service on our behalf. So you're helping all of our communities, your neighbours, people that you maybe know, and providing that service that is very much needed and very much appreciated. And the other piece is that we are able to ask local providers to provide for us. So again, in terms of that, staying local and giving that money back into local communities, that's really important. And that's why we have you here. And that's why we want you to bid in for these contracts. So in summary, you can all bid to join the framework. There is a bit of what we call short-term pain in terms of all of that paperwork, but as we said, 2-year contracts to begin with, and then the opportunity for 2+1s. We did reference that there is a lot of paperwork and a lot of schedules that are in there, but not all of them will apply to you depending on what lot you're looking for. So please don't let that put you off. And as we said before, once you've done it once, you've done it, and then that's it until the next time we look at this. You can bid for the routes that work for you, so that's really important. So it's about giving you that balance, that flexibility, and also that reliable income if you're particularly looking at lot one. There is support available, so our economic development colleagues are here and can show you how to register with Public Contract Scotland. We've obviously got the libraries for IT and Wi-Fi, and our procurement team through the Q&A portal. So we're all wanting to help you as much as possible. We just can't complete the application process for you, but we definitely want to help you. We want to encourage as many bids as possible, and we want to give us work to as many people as we possibly can. And the final piece is that it is a huge operation. We've talked about the number of routes, the scale of transport provision that we require in Midlothian. It's absolutely massive, and we can't do it without your help. So we're really looking for you to bid in and deliver for us. As referenced earlier, that there's what we call wider work going on at the moment. So we're also looking at digital transformation of existing, slight typo on our slide there, sorry. So digital transformation of our existing application process for licensing forms. So for those of you that are familiar with our process at the moment, it's probably a bit antiquated, and we really need to move into the 21st century. So we're currently working in the background on updating all of our forms, but making them online and dynamic, so they're responsive to the application that you're looking to submit. What we're calling instant pricing. So then at that point of application, we'll be able to tell you how much that application costs. You will be able to pay straight away. So this is huge, considering the process that we currently do. We've also got that what we call automated routing, so notifications that come back out to you at the point of submission. We're also changing the way that we do the forms as well. So again, that gives a better process of formatting, and also helps to make sure that we get the right information that we need, so we can process your applications faster as well, quicker, and you can track them and get them back to you. So there's work that's going on in the background, and we're hoping that those will launch later this year. I think I'm looking at Alan Williams for that, but probably later this year. And that will be huge, and hopefully be a much better process than the one that you are currently used to. And finally, so I referenced earlier, Economic Development are here to help you with registering on Public Contract Scotland. So they are hosting a webinar next Tuesday, the 4th of February at 1 o'clock. And again, that's on Teams. So our staff will be on hand to provide you with any support. So that's with registering PCS Also double checking that your notifications are set up if you're not sure how to do that, and answering any technical questions that you have on that part of the process. And our website, Locate in Midlothian, gives you all of the information about the webinar, and we would ask you to register in advance for that if you wish to join. So you'll be glad to know I am finished. I think I kept that to 20 minutes or less, as I promised earlier. So this is your opportunity for questions and answers if you have any. So either feel free to drop them in the chat if you want to, or if you want to pop your hands in the air, that's absolutely fine, and we can take your questions. Either myself or others in the room are happy to answer. Any questions from anyone? Henry?
Hiya. I thought I'd put my hand up there, but obviously it didn't work. There's just a couple of things. The first one, I think I'd mentioned PVGs for all the drivers, but understandably, but didn't mention escort. I don't think.
Oh, sorry. So that would probably have been an error on my part. So we'll need PVGs for everybody that's involved in the delivering of services.
Yeah, okay, fantastic, thanks. And the only other thing I wanted to ask is it, because we've obviously got a number of, well, there's me and Keith's on for everybody else, is it possible to get a copy of the slides?
Yeah, so we were going to post the slides up online, but Henry, happy to sit, like, also just to circulate them around using the email addresses that we've got from today's call, so you can get them quicker.
Oh.
Saves you going to find them. That's fine. Can do that afterwards.
Thanks.
We'll probably fix that typo that's on one of the last slides first before we send that over to you. But that's not a problem.
Magic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone else? No, I can't see anybody unless anyone else has.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi.
Fraser, I was looking for who
Yes.
that was. Sorry, Fraser. Hi,
No,
Fraser.
it's okay. Hi there, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, yeah. It was just to touch on the child courses that you said that were available. Is that for directors or is that for kind of drivers or?
So it would be for those that are front facing and delivering those services. So drivers and escorts, essentially, if you're delivering a route that has escorts on it as well. So some people might have already undertaken child protection awareness training through some other means. And by which then you can just produce the certificates for all the relevant people that have done that. Otherwise, we're working in the background on, we obviously deliver child protection awareness training to staff in Midlothian, but we're working on the background on how we do some sort of delivery of something for all of you who are moving forward as our preferred suppliers. So I'm being a bit vague on that because we haven't quite bottomed out the details of what that looks like yet. Whether that's information that we're providing or whether that's a bit of a kind of session like this that someone would provide for us, or something different. So we're still scoping that out. But obviously we want to do that in a supportive way. So it's not asking you to do something yourself and not giving you the means to do that. We're just trying to work out what those means would be for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for touching on that. It's something that I've not heard of before, so I just wanted to kind of clarify it. It sounds quite good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Izzy. You've got your hands up.
Hi everyone. So just really quickly, obviously we're EMED Group, so we're based predominantly sort of in Bristol, southwest of England. We are looking to get into Scotland. Obviously, my main role is licensing drivers, which I'm assuming it is possibly different in Scotland. And I was wondering if somebody could put me in the right direction to kind of the best person to speak to on your licensing process, how we get like an operator's license, things like that.
Yeah, that's fine. So Izzy, do we have your email address?
You should do. If not, I can drop it in the chat. That's not a problem.
Okay, so if you're happy to drop your email address in the chat, Izzy, then we can put you in touch with our licensing team at the council, and then you can have that conversation with them in more detail in terms of what you're looking for and what we would be looking for from you. Is that
That's
okay?
amazing. Yeah, thank you. Brilliant.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for coming. Is there anyone else that has any other questions? Oh, Keith, hiya. I see your hands waving. Hiya, Keith.
Can I just ask, if you're talking about 2-year initial contracts, if a driver comes to us and wants to join our company, we can only offer them a 2-year contract initially. Is that right?
What do you mean we can only offer them a 2-year contract?
Well, if the
Not
driver comes from a different company, or if he just joined the trade and we have a contract that you ask us to do, can we only say that this is only going to last for 2 years with a possible option of another year? Is that right? On option one?
I suppose in terms of how you're hiring and employing your drivers, is that what you mean? Because
Well, the majority of drivers are going to be self-employed drivers. They're going to come with a car.
yeah,
They're going to approach all the different companies and say, what can you offer us?
mhm,
This is a big time where basically a lot of the drivers are nomads, and they'll
Mhm.
pick and choose depending on what the companies can offer as a
mhm.
contract. So if someone comes to us, obviously we're going to have to say now it's only going to be a 2-year initial contract. Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah, so the contract from us is a 2-year initial contract, yeah, and then there will be the option to extend for a year and a year. But we can't give you any more security from a contract perspective than the
Yeah.
initial 2 years to begin with.
I mean, obviously the downside to that, if we ask our existing drivers to upgrade their vehicles, normally they'll take out maybe have a 4-year hire purchase agreement
Mhm,
on the basis that they've got a fair chance of having steady income for 4 years, which is what it's been for the last 30 years.
mhm.
So you're asking them to gamble a wee bit. I'm sure there will be plenty of runs, but it is a gamble for it if we're asking a driver to stick their neck out. And can I also ask, after the first year, is there any inflationary rises like there used to be that the council stopped doing? In previous years, actually, if you put a price in for the 4 years, there used to be an inflationary rise each year, but you stopped it. I take it, is that going to be included, or do we have to include that, or can we include that in the tender process?
So I'll need to
Price just come.
So I'll need to take that offline because I'm not wholly familiar with what we used to do versus what we do now. Apologies, I've only been here for the do now as opposed to the previous. So I need to take that away, but we can come back to you. We can come back to you with that information because we're going to gather the FAQs anyway. So we can come back to you directly, Keith, on the answer to that question, and then we can obviously post that up as part of the FAQs for anyone else that wants to see it. Is that okay?
Right. I mean, yeah, because obviously after 2 years, are we going to be allowed to add on an extra additional price for the third and fourth?
Well, we wouldn't be
Can that be included in the tender process? Obviously, it's not this time, but can we do it the next time?
So I can check for you and come back. What I can say is that we wouldn't be asking you to re-tender for an additional year or an additional year. So the tender that you put in is the tender for a potential 4-year duration if we were to do a +1 and a +1. Because we're not asking you to resubmit after 2 years if we're going to do the extensions. But I can check and come back to you about what's going into the initial submission to begin with. So we'll do that and we'll come back to you.
Can I just clarify the lot 3? If a driver is a sole driver, not tied up to a company, there's some of the black cab drivers have actually just basically walked the streets and what have you. Can they register with the council just to cover the short-term contracts in lot 3 when it suits them?
So it wouldn't be registering with the council, it'd be putting in a tender submission.
Right.
So we don't have like a bank register of for example, black cab drivers that we could just pull on. We want to use the submissions that are in the that are in
Yeah,
the
get
lots here.
But can someone just register to be part of lot 3s?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so you can submit a. So in terms of you guys here today, for example, your options are lot 1 and or lot 3. So you can go in for both if you want, or you can go in for one or the other. It's absolutely fine, whichever ones suit
Fine.
you.
I mean,
Suit you
even
best.
with loading cabs, you've got a couple of guys that don't want to do school runs, but they'd be quite
Yeah.
interested in doing lot 3s on
Mhm.
short term because they've got
Yeah,
where they like their holidays out with school times and what have you and that.
yeah.
So that's something that would interest them. But so we can do that, yeah.
Yeah. So you can just go in for lot 3, and we talked about the specific benefits for lot 3 in terms of supplementing income and that kind of like more flexibility. And then lot 1 is much more structured in terms of the commitment and the routes. And bearing in mind, if you're in lot 3, because it is reactive, so if we're picking up the phone to you and giving you X amount of days or hours notice to pick up a route because there's been an emergency, we're picking up the phone to the first person that's in that ranked framework already. So we're going to number 1 first. And if they come back and say they can't do it because they're having a lovely holiday in Spain or whatever, then we go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So there's still flexibility in that for those suppliers that are there, because we just go through it in order. So yeah, if there are people that just want to do lot 3, that's absolutely fine.
And one of the final other things, obviously the companies that are here will jump through all the hoops that are required for the initial process. But then after the first few months when it's settled down and other work's getting covered, does this process going to continue, and all the rules and all the things that we put in place as companies, does that continue?
What do you mean? I'm not sure I understand the
Well, if a
question.
kid comes
Sorry.
into the area in 6 months' time, a lot of the kind of rules and things like tracking systems that we all put in, like through our radio systems, everything like that, it doesn't seem to matter. It's just to get the work covered after we're all basically committed. A lot of the initial tender rules that we all abide by, the people that are here,
yeah.
don't always seem to matter the same after the tender process is done, and then just individual runs go out to tender.
Okay, so that's probably in terms of maybe some of the challenges that we've had with the way that we currently do it and why we're looking to change the way that we do it. So in terms of lot 1, there will be a number of suppliers in lot 1 who are our agreed suppliers as we get to the end of the process. And I did say in that slide that there may be additional routes that will come on. I think the likelihood is there will be, because we know that things change over 2 years. When those additional routes come in or come on or are available, they will go through a mini competition to all of you that are already in lot 1. So we're not going to anyone else. We're going to you. And then for lot 3, obviously everybody who's submitted for lot 3 for the ad hoc things that are coming in, again, all of them have gone through the same process. So this process that we're talking about applies to everybody. So there shouldn't be, in theory, anyone that comes in 6 months later that has not gone through this process. The checks and balances that we're asking of all of you, or everybody who applies at this stage, are still the same checks and balances that we apply to everybody else at a future time for this contracts and framework. Yeah.
And can I just ask one final question? I know it's Barbara's in the Foxwell here.
Barbara, you can speak then instead of me.
Well, that's fine. There has been issues over the last few years, drivers leaving companies and not being able to get to bid for contracts either on their own or if they set up another company. Is this going to be another closed 4-year thing? Or, for example, if someone leaves, if I left and wanted to set up another company in a year's time from the company I'm with now, I can't get on this system until the next one. And we've discussed it with councillors and that in the past, but can we actually do anything about that? Or is it going to be a closed shop again?
Barbara, do you want me to?
No, on you go, Sati.
No.
I'll let you.
That's good. So Keith, we are looking at a different way to do this. And there are kind of other, I suppose, procurement avenues that we're exploring, but they're going to take time to put in, and some of those are much more complicated and complex than a kind of traditional procurement approach that we've got at the moment. We are absolutely conscious of the challenge of people, just like that example that you've given, who are then not able to come into this framework and deliver those services, which is why we're doing this exercise. So this exercise is as wide a reach as possible to people who are currently providing services for us, to people who are not for various reasons. Like the example that you've given, or just new providers who are there on the market and haven't had the opportunity to come into this framework. So that's why we're trying to do the meet the buyers. We're trying to get all of the information out as far and wide as possible. Economic development, I've been working really closely with people on the ground, trying to drum up interest in this, and also Alan, who's on the call, who sits in with our licensing colleagues. We've been contacting as many people as we possibly can through who we know is out there to make them available. So we're trying to widen the pool as much as possible to give opportunity to as many suppliers as we absolutely can. It's an initial 2-year contract. It's then a +1 and a +1, and part of the reason for the 2 +1 +1 is so that we don't lock ourselves into a 4-year agreement where we do have those issues where people aren't able to come into that. And it gives us the opportunity to look wider across the market, and is there a different way that we can do that so that we can have a much more kind of dynamic approach where people can come in during the course of the time. But bearing in mind that the current contracts end this academic year, we absolutely have to have things in place to take our learners to school, and also for our adults and children's services who are relying on these services for the moment. So that's why we need to do this exercise so that we are compliant from a contract perspective. So we need to do that, but we've gone with 2 as opposed to a longer term. I appreciate 2 comes with a challenge, as you've talked about earlier, for some of your drivers, because there's kind of less kind of there's less knowns about what that's going to look like for them if it's only 2 years. But part of that is to give us time to look at, is there a different way that we could do this? But a different way to do that would involve making sure that everybody knows how to be part of that different approach. We would need to set all of that up and make sure it's compliant. And again, we need to align that as much as possible with the school academic year, because the impacts of change on some of our young people can be quite difficult. So at the moment, when we do the 2-year process and we award contracts in August, there is no possibility for anyone else to come into that 2-year framework that we have set up. But we are looking at what we can do during that time to change the process around so that it is more dynamic and flexible. But we can't give you an answer on whether that's possible or feasible just now, because we're still working that out. Okay. Does that answer all of your questions? Yes. I think we've got a question in the chat as well.
Sati, you've got a hand up from Abby Cabs as well. A physical hand. A physical hand.
Okay, I'll do the physical hand. Is someone else able to go back to Kenneth in the chat and with an answer? Hiya, sorry, I don't know your name.
Yeah, still muted.
Michael.
Still muted, yeah.
You hear me, yeah?
Yeah, can hear you now. Hiya.
It was basically just to pick up on a couple of the points that Keith was trying to put a cover there. The way things work at the moment is you have your preferred suppliers. But the issue that the council have got, and it is a very real issue, is there is nowhere near enough taxis in Midlothian to cover the work that the council needs covered. So what the council's done in the past is you went through the procurement process, you were accepted as a preferred supplier, but they also then had a reserve list. And once they went through the mini competition, as you call it, and went through the preferred suppliers and nobody would take the run, it then went out to the reserves. And I think this is the point that Keith's trying to make, that do you not run the risk then that people who are then supplying the council who have not undergone the relative procurement process and the relative checks, but because the council are so desperate to get these runs covered, they'll just give them out to anybody?
So we do have lot 3, which is different to what we've had before, and that's about that emergency piece. Part of that is to then cover where somebody isn't able to take on a route, you know, from our current suppliers, or as we said earlier, if something happens in terms of a supplier for whatever reason and they're not able to continue the route that they've got, that's to give us that coverage. So that's, I suppose, our contingency planning around being able to deliver the service. We are hoping as part of this process to, you know, to I suppose put out the net really far, further than we've done previously. So part of that is we need to see what comes back. I mean, there's questions in there that we probably can't answer at this moment in time. We've gone through an exercise where we believe at the moment that this is the right approach. We need to be compliant from a contractual perspective. We need to be able to tell our customers who is picking them up and taking them to X, Y, and Z, and we have contracts that are coming to an end. We also are hearing what people are saying about not being able to get into the current framework at the moment because it's what is called a closed framework, and people are asking for the opportunity to come into that. So responding to all of this, the first step is to do that open procurement exercise. We do not know how many people are going to apply. We don't know if there's going to be enough taxis, minibuses, or coaches to deliver any or all of our routes. We have no idea. We don't know, you know, there's no process for us to know in advance until we start seeing those submissions come in. And then we need to have them come in and we need to evaluate them. So we always run a risk. Absolutely. We don't know. We need to go out there and we need to see. So we are, as much as possible, trying to stretch the net for anybody who's not currently involved in the process and asking them to submit tender applications to be involved in the process. And it's only when we get to the end of that that we will know whether we have enough suppliers or we don't have enough suppliers. And then depending if we don't have enough suppliers, then we need to go back to the table together and we need to determine what our next steps will be so that we can deliver the service. So I know that sounds like a bit of a roundabout non-answer to a question, but it's because we don't know. So you're absolutely right, there is a risk. We are aware that the taxi trade has suffered considerably post-COVID. We know that there probably are less people out there than there were before, but we don't know who's going to be interested in applying for a tender, and we don't know what their capacity is to deliver, and we won't know that until we go out and ask. And then we need to make a decision from there about what we do, because we do have an obligation to deliver that service to our communities.
Yeah,
so
I fully understand that, but to go back to the point that Keith was making, though, that like individual owner drivers who are they're no attached to any of the companies, they could quite easily then pick up contracts from the council without having to go through the procurement process.
I don't think I understand what you mean there.
Well, because if the companies or the preferred suppliers are unable to take on any particular run, it would then go out to the reserve list, who obviously haven't gone through the procurement process. So the run would then be awarded to someone who's not been through the procurement process, and you've no idea basically what their background is or anything like that. So, I mean that's a risk I think that Keith was referring to when he was talking about it.
Yeah. So I suppose for clarification, at the moment there is no intention to have a reserve list. So maybe I've not made that clear, and I suppose it's difficult because we've got how we currently operate, for want of a better phrase, and then what we're moving into. So our intention at the moment is is to not have a reserve list. Our intention at the moment is knowing the routes that we've got, and I appreciate that might not happen, and I appreciate that maybe I'm being overexcited and have an ambition that won't be fulfilled. But our intention at the moment is
very over ambitious, because the lack of taxis and private hire vehicles in Midlothian is, let's just say, it's disgraceful for the size of the community and the size of the county and the amount of new houses that are being built. There is nowhere near enough taxis and private hires in this county to cope with that demand. So there's not going to be enough taxis to cover your school runs. So you will definitely, in my opinion, and it is only my opinion, you will definitely end up with a reserve list of people who have not gone through this process but will still get awarded council contracts.
Okay, so the only answer I can give you right now, sorry, is that we are not intending to establish a reserve list. So at the moment, the process that we're going through is to establish a framework that has enough suppliers to deliver. I'm absolutely not dismissing that that's where we might end up. I absolutely hear what you're saying, and obviously you're closer to the ground because you're in the sector than I am, and maybe I am over ambitious. But our first port of call is to develop and establish a framework where we have enough suppliers, to deliver the services that we need, and that we also have that ad hoc emergency option as well, because that helps us for our contingency planning. If we get to the end of the procurement exercise and that is not the case, I can't say right now what a reserve list and an approach would be, because I don't know, and it wouldn't be a decision that I would be making on my own. So we would go away and we would need to sit internally and talk through what that looks like, and we would need to weigh up the risks around any sort of reserve approach and what that is. So again, not avoiding answering the question, it's just I can't say that it will be the same as it is now, because I don't know. And we need to listen to what people are saying about our current approach and our current process and how that's working or not working for them. So we don't have any sort of plan around how we would establish any sort of reserve list at this moment in time. But obviously, as we move through the procurement process, and if we don't get enough suppliers, then we will need to think about that. But we're going in with a hopeful approach to establish a full framework of suppliers that can deliver the services. So I can't give you any more than that at the moment. But obviously, if we are going to have to reserve, create something like that, then we obviously need to talk about what is the compliance and due diligence elements that we need from that as well for people, and obviously, making sure that we adhere to keeping our communities safe and delivering those services.
That's fine. As I say, I mean, I was only trying to pick up on the points that Keith was making. That was all. I wasn't having a go at anybody.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no. Fraser, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, hiya. I just wanted to kind of jump onto that conversation, because I think it is a big problem that you're going to have, is not having enough suppliers. And I think it comes down to the difficulties of a supplier that we're having at the moment with licensing. Is if you've got all these contracts and you're needing more suppliers, it's taken 12 to 16 weeks to license a vehicle. And for us as suppliers, it's just becoming so difficult. And I know it's nothing that you can do on this meeting, but it's definitely something that needs to be discussed if you are working with licensing. But it's just getting harder and harder to be a provider now as private hire, with all the licensing issues. And I think a lot of the guys will more than likely have the same problems, especially with drivers as well. You can go and be a driver for Tesco and get through a PVG in a week, but sometimes it takes 6 weeks for us to put a driver through. By the time they've got their license, they're away working for someone else. I just think it's going to be a big problem coming through here, that you're not going to have enough suppliers. And I think we would all love to put more vehicles and more drivers on the road, but I think we need help, we need assistance. And I think the council are working against us in that and not working with us. But I don't know if any of the other guys agree with that, or if it's just me that's going through the difficulties.
Okay, so obviously I don't know the particular ins and outs, Fraser, of the challenges that you're experiencing, but more than happy if you want to drop us an email with specific information. If there are challenges at the moment with any applications that you've got in, then more than happy to look at that and link in with licensing colleagues about that. I'm cautious not to promise anything because I don't know what I don't know what the specific detail is, if there are any applications that are in. But we're obviously more than happy to do that. We're as much as possible wanting to facilitate success and not have people finding that there are challenges to getting business, local business particularly. So if there are particular things at the moment that you're looking for responses to, or issues that you feel that maybe that we can try and resolve, then you're more than welcome to drop us an email. So I mean, you've got the procurement email. I'm happy if maybe like Martin or Jackie or somebody just wants to drop my email into the chat. You can contact me directly, and I can take that across to licensing colleagues, and we can see what we can do for you offline if that's helpful. If there is a kind of live issue at the moment, if it's more a kind of generic issue around the process of licensing, then as I said, we're looking at things that we're doing in terms of the application process to streamline that. That's a big piece of work with us that we're really keen to do to make the process easier for everybody. If there's anything else that's kind of more generic and not a live issue right now, but in terms of improvements, again, happy for you to drop me an email and we can take that over to licensing colleagues and have a conversation with them about are there things that we can do differently to help smooth the process out as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, it's not any live issues. It's just that it's been an issue since I've came on board as a private hire operator. I believe the other operators are having the same issues, but it's just getting harder and harder, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, if something can be done for the future, I think it'll help all of us.
Okay. Well, I can see Alan Williams listening intently, so I'm sure he's taking notes. So, I mean, I'll get someone to drop my contact information into the chat for you, Fraser, and you can just lift it from there. And then just feel free to drop us a message, just in terms of, like feedback, pointers, issues and stuff. And then we can share that with licensing and take that forward with them. We're always happy to take feedback, and we're always happy to look at ways that we can do things better if we can, so that we can make the process easier for everybody. And I'm sure where there are challenges for you, there are also probably challenges for us. So a streamlined process for everybody will be, would be better for all of us. So that's not a problem.
Jackie's just the first sort of chat thing that I've been on, and it sounds promising. It sounds like you're being very proactive, but I think obviously there's a lot of things that you don't maybe know about what's happening on the ground as well. So I just kind of wanted you to open up to that. But yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
No problem. Jackie's just dropped my email address into the chat, so just feel free to lift that up and use that, and you can just contact me directly. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you. But yeah, just to touch on what Keith said before as well about allowing people to get put onto the tender process. I've been an operator for about 4 years, and it was basically just after the cut-off, and I've not been able to get on it. So I think for new operators, for potentially operators that aren't available to do it at the moment, but can maybe do it in a year's time, I think it would be good to kind of keep it open for people to get on it.
Okay, thank you, Fraser.
Cheers.
Is there anything from anybody else? I've noticed that Alan Turpey has come back in the chat to Kenneth's question, so hopefully that answers that. Is there anyone else that wants to ask anything or say anything? I'm thinking not. So I'm just gonna, I suppose, kind of close up and say thank you to everybody. If there is somebody that wants to, and I've missed them, just feel free to speak out loud and we will hear you before we finish. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming along today, and also thanks for the questions. I think that's helpful for your feedback and your participation. So just to recap, Public Contact Scotland, you can register now. You can join our webinar next week on Tuesday the 4th. And then our ITT, so our procurement will go live on the 6th of February. And as I said, it's really important that you adhere to the timeframes, that you get your submission back on time. Economic Development are here to help, procurement are here to help. Please ask your questions through the portal, because then we can make sure that we do get the responses back to you in time. We will circulate slides to everybody on this call, so where we can pull the email addresses out from people, we will do that. And for anyone that we can't pull email addresses out for from this call, we will post all of the slides and the video recording of this session up online as well, so you've got that. And there's free IT and Wi-Fi facilities at all of our libraries, so you're more than welcome to go into any of those to work on your tender and submit it. And final deadline date for submission is the 11th of March at 12 noon. So I think that's long enough for anybody that I've missed to ask a question if I've missed them. So I think that's all the questions. So thanks very much. I genuinely do appreciate your time this morning. And I look forward to receiving all of your tender applications. So thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.